Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second that you are living in a house where the landlord has a master key.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, for emergencies, but a key they can use whenever they feel like it.
Okay, that's already a little unnerving.
And not just to your front door, but to your diary, your safe, your filing cabinet,
Wow.
even the letters you are writing before you've even put them in the envelope.
Yeah, that's a pretty terrifying thought. It feels incredibly invasive.
It does. But for a very long time, that was effectively the reality of information security.
Right. The government was the landlord.
Exactly. If you wanted to keep a secret, you had to trust that the people in charge, specifically the government, wouldn't look at it. Or you had to, rely on a physical courier to carry your secrets across town.
Right. It was a world of physical vulnerabilities and just total centralized control. There was no other way.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling a subject that is quite literally the foundation of the modern digital world.
It really is.
We are talking about the man who changed that lock metaphor entirely. We are talking about Bailey Whitfield Diffie, known to the world as Whit.
Whit Diffie,
Yeah.
a mathematician, a cryptographer, and frankly, one of the most interesting characters we have ever profiled. He's a real iconoclast.
Absolutely. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this one guy, who, by the way, started out as a pacifist trying to dodge the draft, ended up breaking the government's absolute monopoly on cryptography.
It's a classic David and Goliath story, but, with a lot more math and maybe a bit more hair.
A lot more hair. We're going to look at the New Directions in Cryptography paper he wrote with Martin Hellman in 1976. And this wasn't just, some research paper.
No, it was a revolution.
It really was. It's hard to overstate. That paper is the reason you can buy something on Amazon without your credit card number being stolen instantly.
It's the reason digital currencies can even exist as a concept. It is, and this is not an exaggeration, the bedrock of the internet as we know it.
We are going to break down the mechanics of the split key breakthrough, which solved a problem that had plagued code makers for, centuries?
For centuries, yeah. And we'll look at Diffie, the man, the iconoclast, who paradoxically started his career at a defense contractor.
And that contradiction is where it gets really, really interesting.
Oh, for sure. He's a man of principles, but he had to navigate a very messy world to get his ideas out there.
So let's jump right in. Who is Whitfield Diffie? He was born in Washington, D.C. in 1944.
Right.
And right off the bat, looking at his background, you can see the ingredients for, an intellectual powerhouse.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It was a household that valued the life of the mind above almost everything else. I mean, his mother, Justine Louise Whitfield, she was a writer and a scholar.
Okay.
And his father, Bailey Wallace Diffie, was a professor of Iberian history and culture at the City College of New York.
So he's growing up surrounded by books, by history, by big ideas. It's not your average upbringing.
Exactly. It wasn't a home where you just came home from school and watched TV.
Yeah.
It was a home where you debated ideas. But there is this one specific moment, this catalyst, that really set him on his path. He was 10 years old. Do you have the note on this?
I do, and it is such a specific, almost cinematic detail. His father, the professor, brought home the entire cryptography shelf from the City College library.
Just think about that image for a second. Most dads bring home a baseball glove or, a model train set.
Right.
Bailey Diffie goes to the university library, looks at the shelf labeled cryptography, and basically sweeps the whole thing into a bag.
Laughing, here you go, son. Crack these.
Essentially, yes. And for a 10-year-old Whitfield Diffie, that was it. That was the spark. He didn't just look at the pictures. He devoured the texts. He was bitten by the cryptography bug right then and there.
But what's fascinating here is that despite this obvious brilliance, he's reading college-level texts on ciphers at age 10.
Yeah, which is insane.
He wasn't exactly a model student in the traditional sense.
No, and this is a pattern we see with a lot of these outlier geniuses. The standard academic conveyor belt just doesn't work for them.
So let's unpack his time at Jamaica High School in Queens. The source material says he performed competently, but
never did apply himself to the degree his father hoped.
Performed competently is such a polite way of saying he was bored out of his mind.
Totally. He did enough to get by, but he wasn't chasing the gold stars. He wasn't interested in jumping through the hoops just because the teacher said so.
And speaking of hoops, this is where we get the first real glimpse of his rebellious streak. He didn't even get a standard academic diploma from high school.
No, he didn't. He graduated with a local diploma because he refused, flat out refused, to take the statewide Regents examinations.
For those of us who didn't grow up in New York, the Regents are a huge deal. They are the gateway to a real diploma. Refusing to take them is almost unheard of for a smart kid.
It really is. But you have to understand his logic.
What was the thinking there?
It was a power move. I mean, he had already secured admission to MIT,
The Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
the top engineering school in the country, maybe the world. And he got in based purely on his stratospheric scores on standardized tests. He had the SAT scores, he had the aptitude. MIT said, you're in.
So he basically looked at his high school administration and said, I'm going to the best engineering school on the planet. I don't need your test.
Exactly. It speaks to that Iconoclast label he uses for himself. He plays by his own rules. If a rule doesn't make logical sense to him, or if he views it as just bureaucratic waste of time, he just ignores it.
So he gets to MIT, the promised land for geniuses, right?
Oh, yeah.
You would think he would land there and finally feel like he was home.
You would think so. But it sounds like it wasn't exactly smooth sailing there either.
No, the sources say he felt unengaged. He actually considered transferring to Berkeley because he thought it would be a more hospitable academic environment.
Which is interesting. MIT is known for being a grinder. It's intense, it's competitive, and it's very, very structured.
And Diffie, as we've seen, resists structure.
He absolutely does. He was probably looking for something a bit more free-thinking, more philosophical, which Berkeley certainly represents.
But he stayed at MIT. And this brings us to one of my favorite details in his entire biography. It's about his relationship with computers.
This is great. I love this part.
So he starts programming computers at MIT. But not because he loved them? Not at all.
No, he did it to cultivate a practical skill set. He needed a way to make himself useful, employable, but he actually viewed computers as very low class.
Low class. The man who wins the Turing Award, the Nobel Prize of Computing, thought computers were low class. It's incredible.
It sounds absurd to us now, but you have to put yourself in the mindset of a pure mathematician in the early 1960s. To him, pure math. Things like partial differential equations, topology, abstract theory, that was art.
That was the high culture.
That was high culture. It was poetry.
Yeah.
And computers.
Computers were machinery.
They were just machinery. It was banging on a keyboard. They were loud, clunky, utilitarian. To him, working on a computer was like being a mechanic. It was manual labor compared to the elegance of pure mathematics.
It's amazing how life works out. He stuck it out, though, and he graduated with a BS in mathematics in 1965.
He did.
But then we hit the mid-60s, and the world outside of MIT is getting very, very complicated. The Vietnam War is ramping up.
Right, and this is crucial context for understanding Diffie's motivations. This isn't just a math story. It's a political story, too.
So Diffie finds himself in a serious moral conflict.
He does. It's 1965. The draft is in full swing. If you were a young, healthy male, you were probably going to Vietnam unless you have a very good reason not to.
And Diffie was a pacifist.
A committed pacifist. He opposed the war fundamentally on moral grounds.
So he needs to avoid the draft, but he also needs a job.
So he finds a loophole. And it is a deeply, deeply ironic loophole.
He takes a job at the MITRE Corporation.
A MITRE Corporation,
Yeah.
which is a defense contractor.
So he goes to work for the military-industrial complex specifically to avoid being drafted into the military.
I mean, the irony is just, it's perfect.
That is a delicate tightrope to walk. I won't fight in your war, but I will work for the company that builds the systems for it.
It is. But he managed to carve out a niche for himself. He worked there from 1965 to 1969, but he was very careful about what projects he worked on.
So he wasn't working on weapon systems.
No, he focused on non-military applications. He worked on something called MATLAB.
MATLAB, what was that?
It was an early symbolic manipulation system. Basically, it was software that could do algebra and calculus. It was a tool for mathematicians and scientists.
So technically, he was keeping his hands clean.
In his mind, yes. He wasn't building missile guidance systems. He was building a very sophisticated calculator.
But eventually that pull of the West Coast, and maybe that desire for a more hospitable environment he felt back in college, it took over.
Yeah, it seems like it was always in the back of his mind.
So in 1969, he moves to the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, or SAIL.
And this is a legendary place in the history of computing. This is where the future was being invented. He's working under John McCarthy.
The John McCarthy.
The literal father of artificial intelligence. He coined the term AI.
Wow. So what was Diffie doing there?
He was working as a research programmer on LISP 1.6. LISP is a programming language that was huge in AI at the time. He was helping with correctness problems.
Yeah.
Basically making sure the code did exactly what it was supposed to do mathematically, proving that the logic was sound.
So he's deep in the AI world, but while he's there, Something happens. That childhood spark, the one from the library shelf full of crypto books,
Yeah.
it starts to reignite.
Yes. His interest in cryptography starts to move from just a childhood hobby to a professional obsession.
Why then?
He starts realizing that as computers become more connected, as we build these networks, the need for security is going to be paramount. He saw the future.
But there was a problem, right? In the late 60s and early 70s, you couldn't just go to the library and check out the latest research on crypto.
No. That shelf his dad brought home, that was old stuff. Classical ciphers, things that had been around for decades or centuries. The new stuff, the modern computer-based research, was almost exclusively the domain of the government.
Specifically, the National Security Agency, the NSA.
Right. They held a complete and total monopoly on the knowledge. If you weren't in the NSA or working for a direct contractor with high-level clearance, you were shut out. The research was classified. It might as well not exist for a civilian.
So if you are an independent researcher like Diffie, who is starting to get obsessed with this topic, what do you do?
Well, if you are Whitfield Diffie, you do something radical. In May of 1973, he leaves SAIL. He quits his job.
Just quits.
Just quits. To pursue independent research in cryptography.
With no grant, no institutional backing.
No backing. Just a burning curiosity and, I guess, a lot of self-confidence. And this kicks off what I like to call the quest.
Tell me about the quest. This sounds like something out of a movie.
It kind of is. He realized he couldn't find the answers in the standard journals because the answers weren't in the journals. They were locked in safes at Fort Meade. So, to quote the source, he went around doing one of the things I'm good at, which is digging up rare manuscripts in libraries, driving around, visiting friends at universities.
I love this image. It's like a cryptographic road trip movie. He's driving across America in, I don't know, a beat-up station wagon.
Oh, right.
Digging through dusty archives, trying to piece together this forbidden knowledge from scraps and footnotes.
And he wasn't alone on this journey. He was assisted by his girlfriend, Mary Fisher, who would later become his wife. They were this team out there together, hunting for clues in a field that the government actively tried to keep invisible.
It really is a detective story. He's looking for a science that officially doesn't exist for the public.
Exactly. And that road trip leads them to a very, very important meeting in the summer of 1974.
Where did they go?
They visit the Thomas J. Watson Research Center in New York. That's IBM's main research headquarters.
Why IBM? What was so special about them?
Because IBM was unique. At the time, they housed one of the only non-governmental cryptographic research groups in the entire country.
Okay.
They were doing work for banks and businesses who needed to secure their own data. So if anyone outside the NSA knew anything, it was the guys at IBM.
So Diffie walks in. He must be thinking this is it. He meets with a guy named Alan Conheim, who is the group director.
Right. And Diffie's probably thinking, finally, someone I can talk to, someone who speaks my language.
But he hits a wall, doesn't he?
A brick wall. A classified brick wall. Conheim knows a lot. He almost certainly knows the answers to the questions Diffie is asking. But Conheim is under a secrecy order.
Meaning he legally cannot talk about it.
Correct. He literally cannot tell Diffie anything without risking prison time or losing his security clearance. It's a total dead end.
That must have been incredibly frustrating. You find the expert, you're in the room, you ask the question, and the guy just stares at you and says, I can't say.
It was frustrating, for sure. But Conheim did give him something. It wasn't an answer to a math problem, but it was perhaps more valuable. He gave him a referral.
A name.
A name. He told Diffie, I can't talk to you, but you should go meet Martin Hellman.
And who was Martin Hellman at this point?
He is a young electrical engineering professor at Stanford. And, just like Diffie, he was an outsider. He was pursuing a cryptographic research program on his own, facing the same walls of silence that Diffie was facing. He was another lone wolf.
So Conheim basically says, I can't talk to you, but go talk to this other guy in California who is crazy enough to be asking the same questions you are.
That's exactly it. And that suggestion, that one little piece of advice, changed history. If Conheim hadn't given that name, public key cryptography might have been delayed by years, maybe decades.
So Diffie gets back in the car, or maybe a plane at this point, and goes back to Stanford. He sets up a meeting with Hellman.
And it was supposed to be a half-hour meet and greet. Hi, I'm Whit, I like codes. Hi, I'm Martin, me too.
But it didn't stay a half hour.
No, it lasted for hours. It stretched into the evening. It was a mind meld. They realized immediately that they were on the exact same wavelength. They were both wrestling with the exact same problem.
What problem was that?
The key distribution problem. How do you get a secret key from one person to another without an eavesdropper grabbing it? They shared ideas, they shared frustrations. It was the beginning of one of the most important partnerships in the history of computer science.
It's like Lennon meeting McCartney or Jobs meeting Wozniak.
It really is. They had complementary skills.
Yeah.
Hellman was the academic, the engineer, the guy who understood the structure and the formalisms.
And Diffie?
Diffie was the visionary, the pure mathematician, the guy who could see around corners and imagine things that didn't exist yet.
And Hellman actually hires Diffie, right? He brings him into the fold.
Yes. Hellman had a small grant, and he used it to hire Diffie as a part-time research programmer for the spring 1975 term.
And here is where the story loops back on itself in a funny way. Under Hellman's sponsorship, Diffie decides to give the academic path one more try.
Yes. He enrolls as a doctoral student at Stanford in June 1975.
So he's going for his PhD. He's going to become Dr. Diffie.
Well, history has a way of repeating itself, doesn't it?
Let me guess. The structure problem again. He couldn't handle the homework.
The structure problem, big time. Diffie was, quote, unable to acclimate to homework assignments and the structure. He just couldn't do the busy work. He wanted to solve the big problem, not do problem sets.
But the specific reason he dropped out, I have it here in the notes, and it is just hilarious. It's so perfectly him.
Is classic Diffie.
He failed to complete a required physical examination.
A physical exam, like go to the doctor, get your blood pressure checked, turn your head and cough, a routine checkup.
And he just didn't do it. Why?
His reason was, I didn't feel like doing it, I didn't get around to it.
That is amazing. He is working on math that will secure the entire future of the internet, but he can't be bothered to go get a checkup, so he drops out of the PhD program.
It shows you exactly where his priorities were. If it wasn't intellectually interesting to him, it didn't exist. But, and this is crucial, even though he dropped out of the doctoral program, he remained employed in Hellman's lab as a research assistant through 1978.
Which is good, because they had work to do. They were on the verge of the big one.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the meat of it. Section 4. The breakthrough.
This is the turning point. This is where the world changes.
Okay, so to understand why their work was so revolutionary, we need to really, really understand the problem they were trying to solve. We've mentioned the government monopoly, but technically speaking, what was the issue with encryption at the time?
The fundamental problem was something called key distribution.
Key distribution. Break that down for us. Let's use an analogy.
Okay. Imagine we want to send a secret message to each other. In traditional cryptography, what we now call symmetric cryptography, we both need the same key to lock and unlock the message.
Right, like a house key. If I lock the door with a physical key, you need an identical copy of that same key to open it.
Exactly. But here's the problem. How do I get you that key in the first place?
Well, I hand it to you, or I make a copy and give it to you.
If we are in the same room, sure, that's easy. But what if you were in New York and I'm in London? I have to send it to you.
Okay, so I mail it to you in a secure envelope.
But if you mail it, someone at the post office might open the envelope, make a copy of the key, and seal it back up. You'd never know. And now they have a copy of our key forever.
Okay, bad idea. I could read the key to you over the phone.
But the phone lines might be tapped. An eavesdropper could just write it down.
I see the problem. To send a secret message securely, we need a secret key. But to share the secret key securely, we need a secure channel to begin with. It's a catch-22.
Precisely. It's a bootstrapping problem.
Yeah.
Before Diffie and Hellman, the only way to solve this was to have a trusted third party.
Like who? Give me an example.
Usually a military courier with a locked briefcase handcuffed to his wrist, flying on a secure plane. Or, in the government's case, the NSA itself managed all the keys. They were the central authority. You had to trust them.
And Diffie did not like that at all.
No. Diffie was an individualist, a libertarian, really.
Yeah.
He wanted to eliminate the need for a trusted third party. He wanted two things. One, privacy from eavesdroppers, and two, a way to make secure electronic transactions without needing a central authority like a bank or the government to oversee every single step.
So in 1976, they published this paper, New Directions in Cryptography. And they propose a solution that is it's completely out of left field.
The split key, or what we now call public key cryptography.
How does the split key work?
It was a stunning conceptual breakthrough. They had this realization that the key to lock the message and the key to unlock the message didn't have to be the same key.
Okay, that's already bending my brain a little.
Stay with me. They split the key into two mathematically linked parts. Every user has a public key and a private key.
So I have two keys, not one.
Right. You have a key pair. The public key is just that. It's public. You can put it in a directory. You can put it on your website. You can tattoo it on your forehead. Doesn't matter who sees it.
And the private key?
The private key, you keep secret. No one else ever sees it. You guard it with your life. It never leaves your possession.
And here's the magic part. How do they work together?
The magic is the mathematical relationship between them. They're a matched pair. And the rule is this. Whatever is scrambled or encrypted by the public key can only be unscrambled by its one unique corresponding private key.
Okay, so let's play this out. I want to send you a secret message. What do I do?
Okay. You look up my public key. It's in a public phone book, let's say. You use that public key to lock your message.
Okay, the message is locked. Now, can I unlock it with that same public key?
No. Even you, the person who wrote it, cannot unlock it. Once it is locked with my public key, the only thing in the entire universe that can unlock it is my private key.
And since you are the only one who has your private key?
Only I can read the message.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
It solves the distribution problem completely.
Completely.
We don't need to meet in a dark alley to exchange keys. I just use the key you gave to the whole world.
Exactly. If an eavesdropper's listening in and they grab my public key, who cares? The public key is useless for reading messages. They can't use it to decrypt anything. All they can do is write me a secure message of their own.
It's so elegant. It completely removes the need for the courier with the briefcase.
It does. And it did something else too, something just as important. It enabled something called digital signatures.
Right, because the math works in reverse too.
Yes, this is the other side of the coin. Think about it. If I encrypt something with my private key...
The one only you have.
Right. If I lock it with my private key, then anyone can decrypt it with my public key, since that key is public.
But wait, if anyone can decrypt it, it's not a secret. What's the point?
Correct. It's not about secrecy in this case. It's about authenticity.
Authenticity? How so?
If you can successfully unlock the message using my public key, that is a mathematical proof that it must have been locked by my private key.
Because the keys are a matched pair. One can't work without the other.
Exactly. And since I am the only person in the world who has my private key, it proves that I was the one who sent the message. It's a signature that is impossible to forge.
So this solves the identity problem. It proves who sent the message and that it hasn't been tampered with.
Which is the foundation for every secure financial transaction we do today. When you go to your bank's website, your browser is checking a digital signature to make sure you're talking to the real bank and not a fake site set up by a scammer.
The source quotes Stephen Levy saying, from the moment Diffie and Hellman published their findings, the National Security Agency's crypto monopoly was effectively terminated.
It was a massive power shift. The quote continues, every company, every citizen now had routine access to the sorts of cryptographic technology that not many years ago ranked alongside the atom bomb as a source of power.
That's a heavy comparison. Alongside the atom bomb, is that hyperbole?
I don't think so. Think about it. During the Cold War, power was defined by two things: who had the biggest weapons and who had the best secrets. The government controlled the weapons, and through the NSA, they controlled the secrets. Diffie and Hellman basically published the blueprints and said, here is the math, now everyone can have secrets.
They democratized privacy.
They did, and as you can imagine, the people who previously held that monopoly on power, the government, the NSA, they were not thrilled.
Oh, I bet. They didn't just send a thank you card in a fruit basket.
Not even close.
And that leads us directly to the battle for standards, Section 5.
This is where the theory hits the real-world politics. This is where it gets nasty.
So around 1975, 1976, at the same time they're publishing their work, the National Bureau of Standards, or NBS, proposes something called the Data Encryption Standard,
Right.
DES.
Right. The government realized that computers were becoming common in business, and companies needed a way to encrypt data for, payroll, trade secrets, things like that. So they proposed a standard system for everyone to use.
And Diffie and Hellman looked at this proposal and said, wait a minute, this is broken.
Specifically, they criticized the key length. DES used a 56-bit key.
Now, for the non-math folks out there, why was 56 bits a problem? What does that even mean?
It was too short. In cryptography, the length of the key determines how many possible combinations there are. A longer key means exponentially more combinations.
And more combinations means it's harder to guess.
Exactly. Diffie and Hellman argue that a 56-bit key was vulnerable to what's called a brute force attack.
Which means just trying every single possible combination until you get lucky.
Exactly. If the key is short enough, A powerful enough computer can just cycle through every option. Is it A? Is it B? Is it AA? Is it AB? In a reasonable amount of time. And they did the math. They figured out how much it would cost to build a machine to do it.
And they thought the NSA knew this, that they proposed a weak standard on purpose.
Oh, they were sure of it. They argued that the NSA wanted a standard that was just strong enough to stop, corporate spies or low-level hackers.
But not strong enough to stop the NSA.
But weak enough that the NSA themselves, with their massive government-funded supercomputers, could crack it whenever they wanted to.
That's a serious accusation. They were accusing the government of deliberately sabotaging the security of the American public for their own surveillance purposes.
It was. It was a huge controversy. And there is actual evidence of the tension. There's a surviving audio recording of a review at Stanford in 1976. It involved Diffie, Hellman, and representatives from the NSA who flew out to meet them.
What happened on the tape? What can you hear?
You can hear the argument. You can hear Diffie and Hellman sketching out on a chalkboard how a massively parallel key cracker could be built. They're basically giving a blueprint for a machine that could break the government's own proposed code.
They were taunting them.
They were saying, look, if we two guys at a university can design this on a chalkboard, a determined state actor or a big corporation can build it. This is not secure.
And were they right? Did history prove them right?
They were 100% right. We learned later through declassified documents and reporting that the NSA did actively intervene with IBM, who designed the algorithm, to shorten the key size from, I think, 128 bits down to 56.
Wow. So it wasn't a conspiracy theory, it was a conspiracy fact.
It was. They deliberately engineered the weakness, just as Diffie and Hellman suspected. And years later, when technology advanced, people built exactly the kind of machines they warned about. In the 90s, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, built the EFF-DES cracker.
And did it work?
It worked perfectly. It cracked the DES key in a matter of days, then hours. It proved, publicly and decisively, that DES was insecure and obsolete. Diffie was vindicated completely.
It really highlights that David versus Goliath theme we talked about. He stood up to the NSA and IBM, two of the most powerful organizations on the planet, and said, your math is weak. And he was right.
It takes a lot of confidence and a lot of courage to do that. Remember, he was young. He wasn't a tenured professor with a Nobel Prize yet. He was just a guy with a part-time research grant and a conviction that he was right.
So after these massive world-changing breakthroughs in the 70s, Diffie moves out of the purely academic sphere and into the corporate world. What did his later career look like?
From 1978 to 1991, he worked at Northern Telecom. He was the manager of secure systems research.
Northern Telecom, that's big infrastructure stuff, telecommunications.
Exactly. He was designing key management architecture for the PDSO security system on X.25 networks.
Okay, you've got to translate that for us.
Laughing. Basically, he was figuring out how to implement his ideas to secure the phone lines and the early data networks that were starting to span the globe. He was taking his theoretical split key idea and making it work in the messy real world of cables and switches and routers.
So making it practical.
Making it practical at a massive scale.
And then in 1991, he joins Sun Microsystems.
Which was a huge move. Sun was, it was the Google of the 90s. They were the company building the servers and workstations that ran the early internet. Their motto was, the network is the computer.
And what was his role there? It wasn't just engineer, right?
No, he had several titles over the years. Distinguished Engineer, Vice President, and Chief Security Officer. Eventually, he was made a Sun Fellow.
Which sounds like a very high honor within the company.
It is. It's the highest technical rank you can achieve. It means you're basically a guru who gets to work on whatever you think is important. But at Sun, his role shifted a bit. He started focusing a lot on the public policy aspects of cryptography.
How so? What does that mean?
He wasn't just coding anymore or designing systems. He became the chief exponent of Sun's security vision. He was testifying before Congress. He was fighting the crypto wars of the 90s.
The crypto wars?
Yeah, that was the period when the government tried to ban strong encryption or force companies to install backdoors for law enforcement. Diffie was on the front lines, explaining to lawmakers and the world why strong, unbreakable security mattered for privacy, for commerce, and for democracy itself.
So he became a statesman for the cause.
A statesman for privacy, yes. A public intellectual. He stayed there until 2009.
And after Sun, he didn't just retire.
No, not his style. He did a stint at ICANN, the Internet Corporation, for assigned names and numbers from 2010 to 2012. He was their vice president for information security and cryptography.
ICANN is the organization that manages the address book of the Internet, right? Domain names and IP addresses.
Exactly. So he went from inventing the lock to helping design the building to helping secure the entire city's street plan.
He kept his foot in academia, too, I see.
So yes, he never really left it. He had visiting professor roles at Royal Holloway at the University of London, which has a premier security group. He was visiting scholar back at Stanford, and he even took a role at the Jiang University in China in 2018. He's a global citizen of the security world.
He's a legend. And fittingly, the world eventually, officially, recognized just how monumental his contributions were.
The awards list is staggering, but the big one, the crown jewel, came in 2015.
The Turing Award.
Yes, he won it jointly with his old partner, Martin Hellman. And as we said, it is considered the Nobel Prize of Computing. It's the highest honor in the field.
And the citation for the award it sums it all up perfectly.
It does. It says it's for introducing the ideas of public key cryptography and digital signatures, the foundation of modern internet security protocols.
There's no ambiguity there. They built the foundation.
He was also inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2011, named a Fellow of the Computer History Museum, and this is a big one, elected a foreign member of the Royal Society in 2017. That's the Academy of Newton and Darwin.
Not bad for a guy who refused to take his high school regents exams because he thought they were a waste of time.
Not bad at all. It kind of validates his path, doesn't it? He knew what he was good at, and he knew what mattered, and he just ignored the rest.
So as we wrap this up, let's go back to the man himself. We described him as an iconoclast, a pacifist, a rebel. What was his driving philosophy?
He stated once that he was always concerned about individuals and individuals' privacy as opposed to government secrecy. And that's it in a nutshell. That is his core philosophy. He believed that regular people should have the ability to keep their conversations private, even from the state, that it's a fundamental right.
It's a powerful legacy. I mean, every time we send a secure message on WhatsApp, every time we log into our bank, every time we see that little padlock icon in the URL bar of our browser, we are using the tools he fought for.
We are. He shifted the balance of power. He took the atom bomb of information power away from the generals and the spy agencies and gave it to the people.
But this brings me to a final provocative thought, and I want to get your take on this. Diffie's dream, his whole goal, was to eliminate the trusted third party.
Right. Peer-to-peer trust, guaranteed by math.
But look at the internet today. We rely on Google for our email, Facebook for our social lives, Amazon for our shopping, Apple for our phones. We rely on certificate authorities to tell us a website is safe. We rely on VPN providers to hide our traffic.
That is the great irony of the modern web, isn't it?
Have we truly achieved the privacy Diffie envisioned? Or have we just traded one set of trusted third parties, the government, for another, arguably just as powerful set, the tech giants?
That is the billion-dollar question. And I think it's a really sharp point. Diffie gave us the tools for independence. The math works. The math is perfect. But the implementation, the systems we built on top of that math, has often led us right back to centralization. We still tend to trust giant entities to hold our keys, manage our data, and mediate our communications.
It seems like human nature craves a middleman, even if the math says we don't need one, we want convenience.
Perhaps. Or perhaps the fight isn't over. Diffie gave us the sword. It's up to us to decide how to use it. The struggle between centralization and decentralization is it's the defining struggle of the digital age.
Something to think about the next time you unlock your phone. It's secure, sure, but who holds the keys?
Indeed.
That's it for this deep dive into the life of Whitfield Diffie. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.